And when you played the Thin Blue Line, I mean, I have to say, it was a brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. When you took that role on, did you kind of think about how it was going to be become such a cult kind of policing style of program? And I have to say, some of the terminology that came from that was just brilliant. I mean, from a policing terms, I was in the police when that was on, and as police officers, we'd often refer to some of the comments that was made. I forget the guy's name, that the inspector. I mean, he came out with some
Grim.
just absolute grim. I mean, he came out with some just brilliant one-liners. I remember there's one line he comes out about when he's talking about Sweeney turning up. Just brilliant.
Well, and funny you should mention that character, because that was my favourite character. And I must say, Ben Elton really excelled himself in giving him some cracking lines. I mean, the man, whose life is absolutely miserable and wants everyone else's life, doesn't understand why. He was my favourite character of the lot. And I remember we just, during the line-up scene, he wanted urine samples, so he was shouting, will somebody take the urine? Would somebody please take the urine?
How do you do that? I mean, I've made lots of telly, but I've never made telly where I've had to laugh. How do you manage? I mean, I'd be in hysterics. How do you do that? How do you get through it?
Well, what usually happens is they call cut. Let's do that again. So you can do it over and over again. But I think also the prospect of doing it in front of a live studio audience and have it filmed at the same time, does put you on your front foot.
Did you think that program allowed you to be you?
Yes, I mean, I considered Goody as in my mind, he was Frank Spencer, who was very married to Betty, and I never questioned.
And did you play it in that style? Was that when you played the style? Was that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Was a sort of he was an innocent child. I was trying to play him more like a child than.
Yes.
And then when people started saying, "Oh, the gay one," I was thinking, "Which gay? There's no gay one." Oh, they mean me. But when you're doing heightened comedy like that, you have to move around a bit, and I was sort of Pike to Rowan's Captain Mannering, so you do have to
and do you bring that so when they decided Grim will be like this and you'll be like this, is this you creating this kind of style? I mean, Ben Elton obviously brings his influence, but are you creating the style?
Well, no, I think you see what Ben Elton's written, which is all very clear, very, very clear. The character is that you either understand the character or you don't. And when I read it, I thought, I know exactly what I would do with that character. And, there was a sort of quite a long audition process of, mixing us up with different people and everything. But I always ever played Goody only that way because I couldn't see any other way. But that came all from Ben Elton's writing.
And what about Rowan? I mean, Rowan plays this most amazing, inspector in charge of it all. Who is? I mean, he's just funny by his very nature, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he's the man. Well, to me, he's one of my comedy geniuses of all time. My comedy heroes. I grew up watching him, the Not the 9 o'clock news. I would go and see plays, The Nerd that he was in. I mean, I would see him in anything. And I watched him. And so to work with him was quite an extraordinary. To work with him so young was quite an extraordinary.
And do you think there's any correlation between him and the likes of Charlie Chaplin? Of course, Rowan goes on and does non-talking, no sound. It's just his actions, which is obviously what Charlie Chaplin did in those very early days.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think he's up there. Definitely, I would definitely put him with Chaplin. I'd put him up there with my heroes, Laurel and Hardy, as far as physical. Comedy. He understands comedy. He has funny bones. But it's not just all instinctive. it is instinct, but he also rehearses a great deal and makes sure he knows.
He works really hard, does he? Does he work
works
really
hard at it? Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. But I'm not saying, you know, there isn't the talent there, because the talent is 100%. It's just that he perfects it. He's like Chaplin did. Chaplin didn't just walk in. Chaplin knew exactly where he was going and what he was going to do. So Rowan is up there with the greats.